Hey everyone, we're back with another fun adventure here in the Mojave Wasteland. A while back I asked y'all which route you think our protagonist, Pickman, would go with, were he the central character in place of Courier 6. And I have to say, these results are pretty interesting. We'll have to see where Pickman's journey takes him to see if your vote matches the end result. But before all that, let's take a closer look at the Commonwealth's Raider-slaying Lovecraftian reference. This special allocation is pretty great because Pickman's only means of attack will come from his strength score. 9, definitely love to see that. What I'm not crazy about is 4 and everything else, although by Fallout 4 standards, as the special allocation is very different. These are excellent stats, and honestly for New Vegas, they're not too bad either. I am happy that we have a 4 intelligence because, well, anyone who's been watching these challenges for a while knows why I like that in particular. If you know, you know, and if you don't, you'll find out soon. With a 4 endurance, we are locked out of toughness, which is a real shame because our gear isn't doing us any favors in the damage threshold department. Pickman's blade is a unique combat knife, so we started Pickman off with a standard one. We can get Chance's knife if we really want to. And you know, now that I'm thinking about it, I've never actually used that weapon before, so there's certainly incentive, though I don't know if we'll bother with it because it is a bit out of the way. Combat knife is pretty decent on its own, but as our only weapon, well, we've got our work cut out for us. Okay, and click off now. Unclick, dislike, all that fun stuff while I continue to talk about Pickman's outfit description, because believe it or not, we actually have a good reference for the suit we can use. I can't say I was expecting that we'd be using Crocker's suit for anything in these challenge runs, but hey, here we are. As far as tag skills go, we went with melee weapons, repair, and survival. I figured that survival made sense for a man who was able to endure life in the Commonwealth by himself, and it's generally a nice skill to focus on here in hardcore mode. Repair will keep our combat knife in good shape, and melee weapons was pretty obvious. We're also rocking the trait Built to Destroy for some added challenge. You might not think that at first glance because we get a 3% increase to critical strikes, but the 15% weapon degradation, coupled with the fact that the combat knife isn't the sturdiest item withstanding, means that we had to be careful when engaging our foes. Before we set the scene, let's talk about Pickman himself. For those of you who may not be familiar, Pickman is, by his own admission, a serial killer who satisfies his urges by going after raiders. He's quite proud of how gruesome he is in his methods. When we meet him as the sole survivor, his base of operations has many grotesque, he calls them forms of art, be it paint, except the paint is blood, as well as disturbing visuals. Raiders are hunting him down, and we have the choice to help Pickman or kill him. We get his eponymous blade regardless, as far as I know. If we spare him, he does end up leaving the game after that encounter, and I always thought that was a real shame because sparing Pickman could have led to some pretty cool random encounters, either where he's battling raiders or maybe he jumps in and helps us out. Personally, I think that guy would be like the kryptonite to Nuka World. I always found Pickman to be pretty interesting, despite his one scene, basically, because he knows he's monstrous and he owns it, but he's also, debatably, doing a good thing by killing raiders. I mean, less raiders is better for everybody, regardless of wasteland, but what happens when there either aren't any more or there are too few? Does Pickman honor his code, or does he succumb to his urges? Well, luckily for our protagonist, there's no shortage of raiders here in the Mojave, and that brings us to my favorite part of every Fallout Challenge video intro, setting the scene. In this timeline, Pickman hasn't quite developed the notoriety in the Commonwealth that he would normally when the sole survivor encounters him. FNV does take place 6 years before 4, after all. And he's here because, as mentioned above, raiders in his neck of the woods are at an all-time low. Rather than succumbing to his urges, he has honored his personal code, and in his travels, well, there's no shortage of raiders to kill, especially as you go further west, towards the Capital Wasteland. And I'm bringing that up because, in the Capital Wasteland, courtesy of TTW, there is a fun little place called Union Station, and that's what you use to go back and forth from the Capital Wasteland to the Mojave. Using our favorite plot device just to see where the heck it even goes, Pickman does accompany some travelers, and it's a pretty strenuous tense 2 weeks. He's really got to quell his urges there, but he does. And once he gets to the Mojave, it doesn't take him very long to become an enemy of raider groups like the Fiends, Jackals, Scorpions, Vipers, etc. And as you saw, Pickman started in the NCRCF. You see, his indiscriminate killing did paint a bit of a target on his back, although accidentally. When encountered by an NCR patrol, what they saw was a guy with a knife standing over many dead bodies, a raider and caravaner alike. Pickman actually helped these guys out, but they don't know that, so he was detained. He went peacefully and was sentenced to the NCRCF. See, he actually arrived before the events of Fallout New Vegas. I'd say he's been here probably for like 3 months or so. so he would have experienced Samuel Cook's little breakout and rebellion. That said, Pickman has no personal connection to any of the Powder Gangers while maintaining a very fragile peace with them. So after Samuel Cook's incident, Pickman took advantage of the chaos to continue his mission to slay raiders, satiating his bloodlust, just Pickman things. Well, the Powder Gangers are not raiders in and of themselves. I think they would ultimately satisfy Pickman's definition of one. Attacking caravans? Check. They like to pillage and plunder, as referenced with Goodsprings? Check. With how dire the NCR situation is, as well as the fact that Pickman's innocence ultimately is proved, and he's known to kill raiders, well, perhaps he and the NCR can start anew. I don't see him bearing any ill will against them because he knows what he does constitutes punishable offense, which back home usually means punishable by death. Pickman's goals do seem to somewhat align with that of the NCR because both of them don't want raiders around because less raiders means that the NCR can focus on the Legion, and it makes Pickman very happy. So Pickman's getting started by, hey, I did say fragile peace with the Powder Gangers. In an attempt to clear up the misunderstanding that got Pickman thrown in the slammer in the first place, here he is, helping the NCR reclaim the NCRCF. Pickman's goal for this run is to wipe out all of the raider factions, and like we said before, Powder Gangers technically aren't, but they also kind of are in all but name. With a platoon of NCR troopers at our backs, this isn't much of a problem at all. XP and loot aren't too shabby, and continuing to assist the NCR, we're gonna go ahead and clean that road of those fearsome, lethal ants. I like to think that when Pickman doesn't have raiders to kill, that this is the next best thing. I actually don't remember if there are any ants over in the Commonwealth or not. I guess we're gonna find out when we partake in our first Fallout 4 challenge, coming soon. Now we're gonna get back to the Powder Gangers here in just a sec. Speaking of raiders, one of the raider factions that we can interact with and not get shot on sight are the Great Khans. Normally we like to help this guy down and do the Khans quests, but this time around we are doing no such thing. Killing Anders can make Jack and Diane a bit more difficult to persuade if you want to get the Khans to break away from the Legion, but Pickman's gonna do that by way of force. And here at Boulder City, it's been a little while since we've just flat out helped the NCR and battled the Khans. Now bear in mind, Khans wield weapons like the 10mm submachine gun, the trail carbine at higher levels, and we are in fact wearing a suit and using a combat knife, so this should be pretty challenging. Oh, and there was a text prompt on screen earlier. I mistakenly said we picked repair as one of our tag skills. Nah, it was sneak. I was thinking about repair, but I was like, combat knives are fairly common and you can buy them from most vendors at an early level. So yeah, repair, not that much of a concern. Anyway, we free the hostages. We're gonna make our way back to the NCR troopers who are going to help us with battling the Khans because, again, with the Khans' weapons, we want nothing to do with fighting them by ourselves. Check out how fast our health bar is dropping. You don't normally think of these guys as an obstacle, but in this run, oh yeah, they are. Now, to make the Khans a bit more challenging, we are using a mod called Great Khans Increased Toughness. This gives them more health, and they deal more damage overall. I figured for this run in particular, it was the way to go. If you're interested in that mod and any other mods I'm using, you can find credit for them in the description of all of my videos. Now, we're not done here just yet. We still have to battle Jessup and his little backup dancers, so we're gonna go inside of the store, come out, pull them out, and let our new friends, I'd say take the brunt of the fire, but Pickman does what he does best. He sees Raider, he stabs Raider, he swings knife at Raider, and we level up yet again. That was one of the quickest level ups we've ever had. Interestingly enough, we're going to go back to Prim and help them appoint a sheriff, and I do think that Pickman would choose Mayers here because Mayers administers his own brand of justice. The fact that Mayers takes justice into his own hands, I think Pickman would like that, which is pretty ironic because if Pickman were indulging in his, pleasures, then he would be right on Mayers' bad list. Making our way over to Red Rock Canyon, we're gonna finish what we started in Boulder City and with Anders back by Cottonwood Cove. In order to successfully dissolve the Great Khans without using diplomacy to break them from the Legion, if you want to do it the old-fashioned way, all you have to do is kill Regis and Papa Khan. Regis, as you saw, not much of a problem. Papa Khan, however, is in his longhouse with a bunch of Great Khans, so that's gonna be a bit more challenging. Back at Boulder City, we had the NCR troopers backing us up, but here, now, we gotta do it all on our own. I say all on our own, too, because I don't think Pickman would ally with any of the companions, which is kind of appropriate, because Pickman himself is not a companion. Our first attempt on Papa Khan's life, well, you see it on screen, it went very, very poorly. It went very poorly for about 20 minutes as well. We want to try to get these guys outside and isolated, because it turns out that not all of them will follow you outside. Not that that makes this any easier, because the guys we're battling outside deal a ton of damage. We're also going to pop a Nuka-Cola Quartz to give us a little bit of damage threshold. And it's like I said, it took about 20 minutes to get this right, because sometimes they would actually all come out at once, but this time they didn't, and you're gonna see this because, well, when we make our way back inside here, it's kind of interesting, because Papa Khan, for some reason, decided to fall asleep, and of course, Carl's in the other room. Carl will not attack you, because Carl is not programmed to aid the Khans should you attack them. If anything, he probably finds this a bit amusing. What I found amusing is that Papa Khan runs away, and he can open a door that's locked, but we still have to pick it. Man, he must have really deft hands. Oh, that's okay. We will eventually get him to reappear. I guess he re-entered the locked door and locked it again. Impressive companion ability you would have had there, Papa Khan. And, you know, just for good measure, let's go take out Jack and Diane as well, which this is a real bummer because Jack is an awesome vendor and Diane has a bunch of quests you can do, but funny enough, we actually have not failed Abba Dabba Honeymoon because Anders can die. He almost certainly will if you don't fast travel. I wouldn't know, I've never tried. I have gotten him killed by a wandering NCR ranger, the one that gives you the little radio once you get accepted with them. Now, I was pretty nervous about Cook, but it turns out that Victor we actually encountered, and he went this way, which was awesome, because this battle was going to be absolutely brutal. Thanks to our Securitron buddy just happening to be here, a lot easier. Now, fortunately for us, Cook, although we still have to deal with him, doesn't seem to mind the fact that we're just cutting into him like a wheel of Swiss cheese because we have taken out Queenie. And you know we got a show making our way to Vault 3, where Motor Runner is holed up. I remember this place being really tough in our FNV as an Omerta thug run. We used the combat knife to battle these guys in that run as well, so I was kinda used to the level of danger here. Didn't make it any less intense, however, because the Fiends, although their weapon condition is usually quite poor, still wield some pretty powerful firearms. The ones with melee aren't that big of an issue, but plasma rifle and laser RCWs, real problem. And up to this point, Pickman has knocked off the lesser raider gangs. They're almost never difficult. The only time I remember them ever putting up much of a fight was in our Sunny Smiles run. It's one thing to go after raider gangs with a combat knife, it's another to fight them with a standard varmint rifle. I think I'm just a lot more comfortable in melee combat in this game, especially as a low vision gamer. At any rate, I was pleasantly surprised with how this turned out. I thought this was going to be a lot more difficult. Again, this could turn bad real fast, considering that we don't have any damage threshold. But another great thing about battling Fiends is that they're not the bravest, especially when you get into ideal one-on-one engagements and they like to try to run away. Hey, if nothing else, Pickman's gonna have a ton of finger paint at his disposal once he's done clearing these guys out of Vault 3. Now, we do have our Great Khan armor, and we can use this to gain easy access into Vault 3. Pickman at this point is familiar with the alliance between the Khans and the Fiends, and turns out that he killed the Khans so quickly that the Fiends weren't not yet aware of the Khans' demise. As long as we play our cards right, we can take out Motor Runner without him ever attacking us or his dogs, and because the Fiends are marked as friendly due to that, bypassing of the speech check, as long as we kill them unseen, it's gonna be like shooting fish in a barrel. And now for Nephi, we have the first recon to help us out, and for Violet, we have a stealth boy to take advantage of. Not too much of a problem, so we're gonna cut ahead right on over to the tops. And now, funny enough, in an NCR run, you never actually have to encounter Benny, which I kinda really like. I like to think that Benny is on Pickman's radar. He may have turned on the Great Khans, but hey. Khans were with Benny when Courier 6 was murdered, a piece of information that Pickman managed to pick up during his journey in the Mojave. Our protagonist goes in knife a swing and super slam procs, and Benny does not get back up. Now, the NCR does not yet know that Pickman is a serial killer. I would like to think he would not admit that to those guys. However, the likes of the Legion and Mr. House have noticed this, drop in raider population in the Mojave. Now, poor Pickman is at a bit of a crossroads here. I do think he would consider the Legion fair game. However, after realizing that they have a military force comparable to the NCR, ooh, that's real conflicting for our, hero. We actually haven't battled any legionaries up to this point, and despite what I just said, I don't think that Pickman would get involved with the conflict between the NCR and the Legion. Being from the Commonwealth, where there are no great superpowers like this, I mean, the Brotherhood of Steel, I guess, counts, but even they aren't nearly as big of a government force as the NCR or the Legion. But that's not gonna stop him from trying to put a stop to their activity. Now, I mentioned traits earlier on in the run. I mentioned built to destroy. The other one, you'll notice, because there's no Abelin Kit BB gun here, is Wild Wasteland. I wasn't sure what else to take, and it didn't have that much of an impact on the run. Losing out on being able to sell that BB gun, though, is very unfortunate. And I know just who to take that out on. Joe J-Boy! And hey, a guy who scams people out of bottle caps and sends them to their deaths by hands of the Boomers of Nellis, yeah, I think we're gonna go ahead and add that to Pickman's little criteria. After Georgia Boy loses his head, it's time to head over to the Boomers of Nellis. House and the NCR both want us to go over here, so might as well go ahead and do it. Now, this is a tribe I think that Pickman would be a lot more comfortable with handling. You know, they're a small group who wants to keep to themselves, and they have a bit of a problem with outsiders, which I don't think Pickman is going to resonate with that part per se. But their small size, their general isolation, that kind of matches the vibe of the settlements from the Commonwealth, minus the whole blowing up outsiders on sight. After helping them raise the bomber, Nero and Big Sal very politely wait for us to attack first, despite the fact they want us to sit down and want to shoot us. Trusting guys for a tribe known for their backstabbing ways. And speaking of the Brotherhood of Steel, you know what it's time for. Thankfully, we have a stealth boy to help us get out of here, increases our chances of being undetected. I say increases our chances because we do not yet have silent running. And the Brotherhood scribes on the way out seem to have very high perception because they can actually detect us. Thankfully, combat knives are not known for making loud noises, so we can isolate them and take them out one at a time. And once they're gone, it's not much of a problem. We'll go ahead and make our way on out of here, all that good stuff. And once we get out of here, we are going to protect President Kimball. Now, we don't have the skill checks required to do things like disarm the bomb, so fortunately, this Frumentari engineer guy has a redundant failsafe detonator, which must have a sneak check of like 5 to be able to pickpocket. I don't think I've ever failed picking this thing before. And honestly, as much as Pickman is getting along with the NCR right now, going to an earlier question in the run, what happens when the Raiders are at an all-time low, or they're just gone? Because I'm pretty sure our protagonist would be that thorough. I think that the NCR would have a use for somebody like Pickman, but they would want to control him. I mean, obviously, right? And because House is not interested in dictating what people do in private, I'd like to think that he'd be way more tolerant of an agent like Pickman, so let's go over the 4 story choices while we go through Hoover Dam. Yes, man, well, that was easy to eliminate in my opinion because Pickman is not interested in running New Vegas. He's interested in getting that master's degree in art in all wastelands he travels to. The Legion? Although they have a structured military and government, the latter of which we unfortunately never get to see or experience as we don't travel to Legion territory, Pickman never experienced that as we do not, takes them off the list because of their tactics. I think that he does meet their criteria as raiders, but with how formidable they are, he can't do things the old-fashioned way, the way he likes to do things. And that would involve allying with one of our 2 remaining factions. The NCR, again, he'd be useful for them, but he'd be that kind of agent, for lack of a better term, that they'd want to control, like mentioned before. I can't see Pickman retaining his freedom in the long term. Sure, he's been a great help right now, but once his serial killer tendencies become public knowledge, he is, at minimum, going to be marked by them. And mind you, I don't see House wanting one in his ranks either, but with how savvy he is, I think he would prop up Pickman as an anti-raider crusader of sorts when it comes to public relations. Just like with an evil courier, House would be pretty scared of this guy, knowing that he, has access to the penthouse. But it's pretty easy to keep Pickman focused on his goals because, I mean, the Mojave's problems are far from solved regardless of who wins. It would be pretty easy for House to be like, hey, Pickman, why don't you go back out on the desert and battle these raiders who have appeared here? We'll mark it on the map for you. And with that single-minded focus, yeah, I think that would keep Pickman away from House. And just to sweeten the deal, oh, here's this wonderful presidential suite with all luxuries afforded, just in case you need a place to rest. Not to mention with our protagonist wiping out the raiders, it does make Mr. House look good because he took the gamble that was enlisting him as his specialist. Pickman with a positive PR, there's something I never thought I would say. Now, making our way to the Legates camp isn't that much of a problem, especially because the boomers bombed the other side to Kingdom Come. The camp itself, however, well, we're by ourselves because I guess our Securitron died. It's always hard to keep track of that guy. Battling the Praetorians with our current getup, yeah, it's a bit of a challenge. It takes us a fair bit of time to take out this Praetorian guard one-on-one, and thanks to Super Slam, this is a bit more manageable. Now, we do have Super Slam, but because our endurance is fairly low, we are locked out of Stonewall, which is pretty unfortunate because that would be very useful against the Legate. Once we take him out, we do have one more Stealth Boy remaining, so we won't be drawing the rest of the camp. However, we will have to battle one more. And just note, up to this point, the Cons are wiped out, the Powder Gangers are wiped out. At Vault 19, all you gotta do is kill Samuel Cook and Philip Lem, and you satisfy that criteria. Not too difficult with our Sneak Combat Knife build, coupled with a Stealth Boy. And battling the two Praetorians will allow us to see how we'll size up against Lanius, and considering the first Praetorian and this guy, who does cripple one of our limbs, I'm not really liking our odds here. I mean, yeah, we have Super Slam, but the Combat Knife is a kind of a weak weapon at this point in the game. And the real issue is, with Built to Destroy, our Combat Knife's weapon condition degrades faster, so we have to hope that we can kill Lanius without our Combat Knife breaking, if we can kill him at all. Yeah, I can see us going through quite a bit of healing for this battle. Now, normally when you battle Lanius, you battle the entire camp. However, we can get Lanius to attack us one-on-one, and I think that this is actually quite in character, Pickman being able to goad Lanius into fighting one-on-one. We haven't had much Legion action in this run, and I can imagine with all that pent-up frustration of wanting to deal with the Legionaries the old-fashioned way, well, what about dealing with the leader of them, I think? I mean, Caesar does die without Courier 6 intervention, so doesn't that mean that Legate Lanius is actually the new Caesar in all the other routes? I mean, yeah, I know that we can go and kill him at Fortification Hill anytime we want to, but we also have to consider that because we can actually talk down Legate Lanius in the first place and get him to retreat, well, he understands that there's no retreat, no surrender. Very harsh and simple orders from Edward Sallow. Failure is not an option. Legate Lanius knows this because his predecessor, the Malpais Legate, was cast in pitch and just casually tossed off of the Grand Canyon to make an example. Failure is not tolerated, even at the highest positions of power. Cutting back to the action here, yeah, we're not dealing a whole lot of damage to this guy, and as you've seen, we've taken quite a bit of damage ourselves. No way are we beating this guy without Super Slam. Comparing that health bar to our weapon condition, yeah, we better be getting some critical hits soon. Tall order because we have a 4 luck. I gotta say though, despite how difficult this is, I'm actually having a lot of fun with this battle. When I was battling the Legate, I really felt like the fight's difficulty was on full display here. I think that the last time we had a fight this tough was in our end of 2024 special, when we experienced Fallout New Vegas through Benny's perspective. I'm just plugging all of my runs today, aren't I? To think that we're already past the halfway point in 2025. Time flies, in much better shape, a much better state of mind, so life's not too shabby. And neither is Pickman's performance against the Legate. It's really getting down to the wire here. Look at our Combat Knife's condition as we take out Lanius. Man, if that went on any longer, we'd be screwed. With one of our 3 remaining Meeting People magazines coupled with Comprehension, we can talk down General Oliver. Again, Pickman is in good standing with the NCR, and with that, we win. I really hope you guys enjoyed that run. I had a blast with that. It's always fun to play as Pickman. Let me know what you guys think about Pickman. Do you like him? Do you dislike him? Did you keep him alive? I'm actually thinking about doing this in Fallout 3 as well. Let me know if that would interest you guys. Speaking of Fallout 3, our next Fallout 3 run is Fallout 3 Broken Steel as Amada Almodovar. We got some other good runs coming up as well, like Elder Scrolls Oblivion as a Dark Brotherhood assassin, and our first Fallout 4 run, Fallout 4 as Craig Boone. Thank you guys once again for watching. Like, share, subscribe if you enjoyed the video, all that good stuff, and I'll see you at the next one. Later.